Hi, everybody. Text in the chat if you can hear us. Say hello. Hi, Jessica. Jessica, where are you joining from? Are you based in Atlanta or somewhere else? Kansas City. Oh, yeah, I knew that. You are in Kansas City. Hi, Sherry. This is exciting. So we're just going to wait a couple of minutes and let people come in. As you're coming in, tell us where you're joining from and say hello and tell us where you joined today. What are you hoping to gain from this? Marianne, hello. Hi, Tara.
Alpharetta, not too far away from us.
I'm right here in Johns Creek. Welcome, everybody. Tell us where you're joining from, what you're hoping to gain. Let us know why you're joining. We're going to start in 1 minute. Don't be shy. Please talk to us.
Once we start getting into the nitty gritty, I'm sure.
Yes, I'm hoping. All right. We're going to start, and people are still joining. So those who are joining us, please let us know where you're joining from. Say hello in the chat and let us know why you're joining. What are you hoping to gain in this session? So welcome to the AI-powered HR Lunch and Learn. Our goal for this session today is to really help demystify the whole artificial intelligence, show you that we're already been using this. We've been using AI for a while, give you the tools that you need to leave here today and be able to implement this in your workspaces. Hopefully you feel comfortable, empowered. And so the goal today is not to scare anybody. It's really to make you feel comfortable. AI is here to stay. It's our future. And we don't want anybody to be left behind. So let's get started. Hopefully you're going to get excited. And then I want to tell everybody that we have a playbook that you can take with you after this session to start implementing this on your own. It should be in the chat. So please let me know if you're not able to see a document in the chat that you can download and take it with you after this session. Next slide, please. So I am really excited and honestly blessed to be joined by people that I really admire in this HR tech industry who've become my friends. So I am joined, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Bob. Bob Pulver is the principal and founder of Cognitive Path, which is a company that helps employers and clients implement artificial intelligence, and he consults on responsive AI. So I'm going to let Bob just do a short introduction. Bob, please.
Thanks. Okay, thanks, Leah. Very excited to be here. Thanks for the invite, Leah. And yes, I am the founder of Cognitive Path. It's basically an advisory practice at the intersection of responsible AI and talent transformation. So as Leah said, I can help people on the buy side. I can help startups, target the right buyers and make sure they're building solutions that, of course, are designed responsibly and are human-centric and following ethical and fair, principles. I'm also the host of a podcast called Elevate Your AIQ, which aligns very well to the mission of today's show, which is to make sure no one is left behind and you understand what skills and literacy will make you effective in your rest of your career. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. And then next, I am joined by Tiana Neal. Tiana is the owner and CEO of Transcenders Consulting Group. She comes with us with tons of systems implementation experience, specializing in payroll and tax. Tiana, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yes. Hi, everyone. So great to be here. So as Leah mentioned, I am the founder of Transcenders Consulting Group. That's within the HCM space. So specializing in helping clients with heavy payroll tax, HRIS, and also some benefit support as well. And just like Bob, I also do have my own podcast. It's called The Human Role. HR and payroll topics are discussed between myself and many great guests as well. So really excited to be here just to talk about this topic because I have been heavily getting myself familiar with AI over the last 3 to 5 years. I would say initially probably not was overly open, and now I am really open to it. So really happy to kind of just be here and share my experience and help us kind of like take this on together.
Awesome. And then last but not least, we have a surprise guest, which you can see him already. My friend, Larry McAllister. So Larry is very experienced in the digital transformation. He is the head of digital transformation for Nutanix. He's a 3-time CHRO. He's a writer and an author, a best-selling author. Of a book. I'm going to link his book here. It's called The Power to Transform, so that you can look him up, read his book. He brings a wealth of information in this space. So Larry, please introduce yourself briefly.
That was a great introduction. Surprise! I'm surprising you. So yeah, in April, I became head of digital transformation at Nutanix in Silicon Valley. And 2 primary things. One, completely going to overhaul Workday. As many of you know, you buy the system years ago and it falls apart. So we're going to overhaul that. And there are 41 HR tools that HR touches. So putting a rationalization around the future of what we're going to do with technology. So I'm saying by 2027 to have an irresistible employee work experience powered by generative AI across the moments that matter. So that's our 3-year goal. Back to you, Leah.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, so let's get started. We have our first question for you all. How often are you using AI tools like ChatGPT? And I don't know if you all are hearing background noises. Bob, it could be you.
I just muted myself. Is that better?
Yes. Thank you. Okay. How often are you using AI tools like ChatGPT? If you can join, if you can go to slido.com and enter this number or do the QR code, please let us know how often you are using any AI tools. Okay, so we're seeing weekly. We have, okay, we have more than 10 people. Let us know, guys.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Okay, so it seems like people are using AI daily and weekly. So what is artificial intelligence? Understanding the fundamentals is going to be key to seeing the relevance of it and how artificial intelligence, we've been already utilizing it, and how we can integrate it into our daily work lives. So introduction to AI, what is it? So artificial intelligence is the imitation at its core of human capabilities in machines. It helps to perform tasks, typically requiring human intelligence. And there's different kinds of artificial intelligence. So different methodologies, and some of these we've had for a while. Machine learning. So machine learning is a set of rules, essentially algorithms. And an example of that is when you go to Facebook and that system has kind of understood your behavior. And it can see, for me, for example, I like Rihanna, the musician. So if I go on Facebook, I get a lot of Rihanna things to click on and see where she is, etc. So that's a form of machine learning. Natural language processing is exactly how it says. It's the ability to process the natural language and text, so spoken language and text. And an example of that is Siri, or yeah, when you can just tell Siri either in text you can type or you can speak. That's natural language processing. We've had that for a while. Computer vision, that's the ability to open your phone with your face, right? Instead of typing in the code. That's just one example. Robotics, Chipotle just announced that they're going to start having a robot make their guacamole in California. Larry, you probably, maybe you've seen that since you're in California, or you'll be seeing that very soon. And then the decision making and reasoning, an example of that would be like your bank account, where you may get text messages if it detects like there's fraudulent behavior happening, and then it goes a step further and it could shut down your bank account. So these are just types of artificial intelligence that have been already in existence. And another thing, so the generative piece is a use of all of this, right? When we say GPT, it's using all of this stuff. It's been decades of, working to get to where we are today. So next slide. So with every, opportunity, of course, we have challenges. AI is using machines to perform tasks. It's a it's a toolkit. So we talked about the different methodologies. There isn't just one way for artificial intelligence. It's learning from the data. It's only as good as the data it's been given, right? So that hasn't changed, and it's already integrated in our day-to-day lives. So the challenges with that is obviously AI is not a human being, so we still need to be involved when we're using artificial intelligence. There's no empathy. There's really no critical thinking. It is biased because it's using the data that it's been given. And we'll talk a little bit about how we can work to avoid some of the bias or mitigate it. And obviously, it's not perfect. So artificial intelligence in the day-to-day use. So we've talked a little bit about how we're already utilizing it. You can ask Alexa to play music. we've been using it to filter out spam, for example, for a while. And then the personalized shopping that's happening on Amazon through machine learning, that's been happening for a while, and other systems, not just Amazon's. That's just an example. So understanding that we're already using, hopefully, that can help with, okay, we've already been utilizing artificial intelligence. It's not as difficult to integrate it into our day-to-day lives. And where we can do that, and we're already doing it, is through the chat bots. So employees are able to now, text, ask questions, and get their answers. Recruiting is huge, huge, huge for artificial intelligence, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And then learning, customized training content. The next slide, please. So origins of artificial intelligence, how did it start? So understanding, how this started, I think is very helpful as well. And you'll see that it didn't just start with ChatGPT. And I know I'm saying ChatGPT, there are other GPTs out there. So it's not just ChatGPT, but that's, the one that everybody knows about. It started with in the 50s, the term artificial intelligence, and I think Bob can tell you exactly who said this, was when it was first said and used. And at that time, we were still using rule-based systems, programming, and the system was following the instruction that it was given, right? And machine learning. Then in the early 2000s is when, the whole big data and the cloud computing, we've been doing that for the last 20 years. Big data was a huge thing, which allowed for the predictive modeling. And then today we're adding on to all of these developments in the past several decades to where now we have the generative AI, we have new ways of thinking, and problem solving. So yeah, okay, thank you. So AI already embedded in systems. It's already in our systems that we're using today, in the HCM systems. So for example, Workday has been utilizing artificial intelligence. And I'm just saying Workday just because it was the first system that I started using that had artificial intelligence already in it for a while. SAP has been doing it, Oracle. And then we're seeing a lot of artificial intelligence in the ATS, applicant tracking systems, LMS systems, which all of this is allowing for better processes in our payroll and benefits arena.
Yeah, also to just add a little bit of a note, it's helping a lot on the payroll and benefit side when it comes to like automating payroll processes, really providing heavy comprehensive analytics, especially when we get into talking about payroll trends. So we'll get into that a little bit later down the line too, but it's also helping with integrations between other HR functions so that we get better insight. So lots of good things to come.
Thank you. Yes. All right. So how would you feel about AI screening your job application? And if you could just scan this and let us know in one word how that makes you feel.
Inevitable, yes.
Frustrated. We have more than 5 people in this meeting. Tell us, let us know.
Someone did put in the chat neutral, so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
All
good.
right. So it seems like frustrated. Somebody said, okay, if I know there's a human in the loop. Okay.
Let me just comment on that. Okay, if you know there's a human in the loop. So generative AI get you to the, it's not going to replace the human interaction, although it will in some cases, but it gets you to the human interaction faster and with better, more actionable data. So if you get through, the system is going to get you through the interview. When you get to that interview, it's going to be a way better interview, because we're not guessing if you're a good candidate or not yet. So those conversations are going to be much more powerful, and you'll know if you're a right fit much better at the live interviews.
Thank you for that.
So one of the things I thought was important was to call out some distinctions in terminology, because AI is being used as the term for everything that's not done by a human. And so that's not exactly true. So there's a couple on these next two slides. I just want to call out some of the distinctive points here. First is the difference between what most call predictive AI, some call analytical AI, versus generative AI. And so predictive versus generative, you can take those labels quite literally, in the sense that a lot of the AI examples that Leah gave before were really based on analyzing data and trying to predict what's going to happen. I'm going to have this level of attrition. I'm going to have these particular skills gaps. I'm going to this is where I'm going to see expected drop off in my candidate pipeline, or those types of things. So in the retail example that Leah gave, I mean, we expect people that like Rihanna are most likely to also like Taylor Swift or whatever it is, right? But it's all based on probability and prediction and statistics. Whereas generative AI is literally generating that new content. And so sometimes that's just understanding and trying to predict the next word in a phrase or a sentence, so that it can very quickly and seemingly like magic generate an entire document or report or things like that. But the fundamentals are the same. It's sort of understanding those natural language. I think Leah put it really well. It's generative is taking everything that it's already known from its machine learning, from its natural language processing and understanding, and incorporating that to literally generate new content. And so those interfaces that we've become familiar with, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude or Google Gemini, it seems to understand, but it's not actually understanding. It's not actually sentient. It's just using mathematical models to sort of predict, and then it appears like magic when it hits your screen. But there are very different use cases for when you would use predictive AI versus generative AI, which we'll cover in a little bit. But I thought it was important to make the distinction of where it's generating that new content and where there's a lot of controversy over, AI wrote this, a human being didn't write this. Well, hopefully it's working in concert with the human, and maybe it's just creating a draft, or maybe it's just polishing up, your draft, but it's working with you and sort of augmenting, your ability, which we'll get into in a second if we go to the next slide. So here, what I wanted to do is again call out a distinction between automation and augmentation. So a lot of people say, "Oh, we'll just use AI to automate this," and I kind of take a pause and say, "Is that really what you mean?" And I don't want to become like the AI terminology police, but I do think it's important to understand, because some of the things that AI or automation are doing, it's either taking things off your plate, which is usually the case with automation, or augmenting the work that you do. So making you more efficient, making you smarter, helping you think through information, or maybe it's helping you coalesce and summarize a lot of information that would be too time consuming for you or your team to do in a reasonable time frame. So you'll see these sort of functions or use cases on the left. And I'm not going to go through all of this, but you can see where there's a way to use automation as well as sort of augmented intelligence for each of these use cases and more, where the automation is really focusing not necessarily just on routine tasks, but any task that can be um, basically codified into some rules-based system. Like if you ever did programming back in school, you know, if then or if this, not that statements and things like that. So it's very much rules defined, even if it's, you know, more complex tasks or bouncing between systems. Whereas augmentation is saying, you know, this tool is going to be my thought partner. It's going to help me brainstorm. It's going to help me craft, um, you know, a report. It's going to help me write, um, you know, some summary, some assignment, maybe even a presentation. The capabilities continue to increase. Automation is at a task level generally, although it can be extended across a process or workflow. But augmentation is really how do we enhance, you know, some of our natural innate, you know, human abilities. So I just wanted to call out some of those distinctions, because AI is, you could argue that automation is sort of AI, but it's really one subset, and it's not really where a lot of the value that we're going to see going forward exists. So we're going to automate some of the routine stuff and hopefully move us human beings up to higher order tasks where we get to really use our innate abilities, our critical thinking, and our creativity.
Well said. Have you heard the term human machine teaming? I heard that in a Mercer webinar that I was at, and I love that. Human machine teaming, meaning augmenting more than just automation, what you just said, Bob, where we're going in the future.
Yeah, it's an interesting paradigm because, you know, in academia they've talked about human computer interaction for many years, and that's really how do we design, you know, software and systems to be human friendly, to be accessible, and things like that. But the teaming um, piece is really about how do we stay, you know, human centric and make sure that uh, the the technology is there to help sort of enhance our own capabilities. So it's an interesting way to think about it.
Yeah. All right. AI and HR, what it means for you. It's about augmenting, helping you work smarter. Okay. And I apologize. I'm hearing a background noise. I don't know what that is. So please bear with us. Sorry about that. Okay. So this is back to that playbook that I mentioned to everybody. So how do you get started with this? And I saw a few of people who've never used AI in here. I saw a couple of nevers. So for those, what I would say is initial exploration. So how we have number one as your initial exploration, that's where you would start before you even bring this back to your organization. Because you need, as an HR leader, you know, we have the data is with us as HR people. That's where the data is housed, right? You have, you know, your um, learning data, you have your performance management, your benefits, all of the data is housed by HR essentially. So the importance of this is that as HR, we're typically are the ones who are tasked with transforming digitally whatever projects that you have going on, right? So it's just going to be a matter of time that you're tasked with not just implementing an HCM system, but implementing artificial intelligence, bringing it to the organization. So the sooner that we start learning this, the easier and the faster you'll be able to do that. So I would highly recommend anybody who hasn't started this, and everybody's not going to be on the same pace of learning, and that's okay. Like that's understood. We're not all on the same pace. That's okay. Just start, because this is the future and this is where we're going. So the first way to start this, I use ChatGPT. There's others out there. There's several out there. Bob, you know them. There's Perplexity. It just depends on what you're doing. ChatGPT is free. I believe Perplexity is free. Um, Canva has a really good visual AI. So there's several out there that you can start with that are free. Believe it or not, ChatGPT also has, other GPTs within it that, they can provide you with visuals, etc. So start personally on your own, start exploring so that you can now bring this to leadership, and start kind of following this playbook. So next slide, please. So this is the playbook that we created, where once you've kind of started exploring with AI and it's time to bring this in-house, how do you do it? Governance is a huge piece of it. Bob is going to talk a little bit more about this so you can kind of understand what that involves. Leadership buy-in. So you need buy-in from the top down, all the way from the C-suite, because honestly, if you don't have leadership helping with the adoption piece, it's just not going to work. So it has to start with leadership. And then you need to start discussing the time commitment, because not only do you need to kind of practicing artificial intelligence on your own, but once you start doing this in-house, you need the time. I mean, it's going to take away, some of the 40 hours a week or however many hours a week you work to practice AI. So you can start kind of learning it, researching the different tools out there, etc. And then the other thing that's really important is the pilot team. So you want to involve all the teams. Key. So what does that mean? Legal needs to be in there, compliance team, your data team, it's going to be key, finance, HR, payroll, all of the functional teams, so that you can have that collaboration and making sure that you're covering all of the pieces that are involved in this, like HIPAA, compliance, etc. So the playbook that I will send to everybody has details on each of these pieces and how to make sure that you're covering this properly. And then another thing to remember is once you've done all of this, eventually you roll it out. Obviously, it's gonna need repetition. It's not gonna just stop once you roll it out. You'll need to monitor it, assess. Are you meeting the organizational ROI, et cetera? And it's just continuous.
Okay. Thanks, Leah. So this is a lot. I need everyone to just memorize it because it's going to be a quiz in about 20 minutes. But I give Microsoft's AI Center of Excellence created this slide, and I really like it just because it shows not just the breadth of opportunity and the use cases across the full spectrum of the talent lifecycle. So this is basically applicant to alumni. But it actually also shows, if you can read the details, I mean, it's really showing that there's involvement and interaction with AI by all the stakeholders within each of those steps, right? So whether that's a hiring manager, an employee, a candidate, or others, there's AI being used in all of these use cases. And there's even some use cases that I would call out within each of these bolded, categories, such as within, team and growth. There's AI powered coaching tools. There's AI powered executive coaching tools, AI powered mentor, tools. There's every niche within talent and HR technology. AI is being applied. Whether it's all being applied responsibly, I'll have to put my police uniform on and go check them out. But that is one of the things that I think about, because I did get certified to conduct some bias audits for the New York City recent AI legislation. So I do think about that from an auditability standpoint and a transparency standpoint and a fairness standpoint. But if I were to just cherry pick a couple areas, I think one of the things, well, I'll just highlight a couple things on the TA side and then a couple on the HR side. So within talent acquisition, we've got AI being used by the recruiting team. So that's everything from writing the job description to AI powered sourcing tools if you're doing outbound sourcing of candidates, to the actual skills matching when you're comparing a resume to a job description. Almost every applicant tracking system, or ATS, is coming up with some kind of score, like either a match score or a stack rank or something like that, so that the recruiter knows which applications to focus on. That's not generative AI. That's just predictive AI, but it's still subject to auditability, because you're basically using that as part of your decision-making process. Hopefully, as someone called out in the previous survey question, there's a human in the loop. There should always be a human in the loop. Otherwise, you are probably going to run afoul of regulators and legislators. But we want to make sure that this is part of the human plus machine sort of teaming that Leah was talking about before. You have to use your critical thinking and don't just discount applications. We should be trying to figure out ways to include people, not exclude people. But that's a challenge when you have such an increase in hiring volume, especially these days with candidates, which is the other side of this coin here. Candidates are using AI as well. They're using it to customize a resume. They're using it to write a cover letter, and they're using it to mass apply to jobs. So there's AI on both sides of the talent acquisition sort of equation, and so we just need to be aware of what the implications are to that usage, and basically AI evaluating other AI's generated content. So it's an interesting situation that we're in, but there's challenges, but there's a lot of opportunity for improvement. On the HR side, you've got AI being used to personalize, learning and development plans, to understand skills gaps, to match you to a potential coach or mentor. Almost every facet and subdomain within talent acquisition and HR and talent management is looking for or already applying, AI to their use cases, either automation or augmentation. And so I'll just leave you with that. I think there's a lot more to cover. Larry is going to take us through some of the things that he's doing at Nutanix, and some of the ways that they're tackling this. And then Tiana's going to talk about a couple more use cases within the HR domain as well.
Thanks, Bob. So before we go to Larry, so Tara just noted something about having an issue where candidates are using AI to answer questions in the video interviews. And I'm wondering if you have experienced that, and if you can comment on that.
I would love to comment. This drives me bonkers. Technically, the talent acquisition team is supposed to be very explicit about expectations. But my perspective is, this is an assessment for you and your ability and the way that you think. And so to outsource that discreetly, resourcefully, some would say, to AI, I just find as an inappropriate use of AI. Just because you can use AI doesn't mean you should. And to me, this crosses the boundary of acceptable use of technology. We know that you're going to use AI on your job. When you get, if you get this job, you're going to be working with AI in most cases, unless your company has, banned the use of this indefinitely, which is a big mistake, of course.
Yeah,
In my opinion.
I would just
But
add to that.
yeah, please, Larry.
Yeah, there's for the tech skills, there are evaluation tools that can detect if you're cheating. So things like HackerRank and Skillsoft for tech skills, you can't just get the answer, you have to show the steps. So they're getting really good at filtering out if you're cheating. But for the soft skills, we're not that far along, and that goes to Bob's point. So what are you going to do? You're going to lie in this interview, and then you're going to get to work and not be able to do the thing. So it doesn't help anyone in the long run. But as
Yeah.
technology advances, people use it sometimes nefariously, and then the technology overcorrects and stops it. So it's an ongoing cycle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, good points, Larry. I mean, the detectors are not so good, so don't rely on those. With the exception of what Larry was talking about, a glider.ai is another one where it knows if you're um, using a second device. It's got ways to detect whether you've got something else, sort of listening and then feeding you answers and things like that. But yeah, the behavioral psychometric things where, I mean, it just seems like complete desperation to get a job that you would outsource your critical thinking and in some cases, your personality and your thought process to a machine. And then, yeah, to your point, Larry, what do you do then? A week into the job, someone asks you to do something basic and you can't do it, and then what? So I just think that's a dangerous path to go down.
And I guess would that be similar to like how today, or I don't know if people are still doing this, but apparently there's apps out there where it tells you exactly the right phrases that a particular company is looking for, and you can put your resume through that app, and it helps you have the right phrases to go through the applicant tracking system in your resume, but it's still not you. Like that's been happening for a while, but then it gets detected after you get employed, right? Because you can't really do the job. So I think this is just going to keep happening. It's like a new method of doing things, and we have to figure out how we're going to overcome that, like anything else, unfortunately.
Yep, that's fair.
All right. So next, we will, I think Larry is going to guide us through a case study.
Yes. Hi, everyone. So I'm going to talk about two tools that we brought in for talent acquisition. One's called HireBrain and one's called Find Them. So what I've been telling people is generative AI is going to have a faster and more profound impact on the developed society since the internet and maybe since fire. In 3 years, your job will be different. Your kids' schooling will be different. It's moving at a faster rate. Remember the old Moore's law that we can double our compute time every 10 years? That's already down to 8 years. So we are moving at a much faster pace than any time in history. In 3 years, we're going to look back at ChatGPT and giggle to ourselves at how basic that was. So prepare yourselves. Like I said earlier, technology gets you to the human interaction faster with better data. So what HireBrain does is, Leah talked about natural language processing. HireBrain tool is feeding the recruiter questions to ask the hiring manager of how to write the job description. And then it's recording that call and creating a job description that is very, very precise to what the job is and not a laundry list of skills. I applied for this job on LinkedIn that I have now because that HireBrain job description hit me square in the face. I was like, I can't believe this is a real job. And it totally matched to what I wanted to do. So you get the job description super precise in half the time, and it's done in 1 minute. You can now have calibration where it'll build you, here are the kind of interview questions you should ask for this kind of job. And it's super objective. and it starts removing bias, because it's not, the hiring manager's words are not seeping into the job description, or the recruiter's mind is not seeping into the job description. You're describing it, and the tool is delivering the job description. And then it gives you, as a candidate, a true measure of what this job will be. So the number one thing it does is cut time, and two, attracts the right candidates. So let's go to the next slide. So if you think about it, role design has to be tied to what the future work is. Where do you want to go as a company? Humans are really bad at writing job descriptions that way. So the tool, you're feeding the tool the idea of, we need to move more towards cloud and AI technology in this company. So that helps the tool write the job description with that in mind, no matter what the hiring manager is saying. They did an audit of 50 job descriptions, and we failed all 50 job descriptions because of human error. It had the wrong, like everyone had a different view of what the culture was here, or the same job for engineering had 6 different tasks that you had to do. So human job descriptions is outdated and error prone and biased. That's just flat out. And these tools are actually helping you get away from those things. The next slide is Find Them. So Find Them actually goes out into the market and finds them for you. So if you combine this really cool job description, feed it into Find Them, we're saying we don't even have to post jobs anymore. We just go find the best person based on this great job description, how it fits into the company, and sourcing with AI algorithms. So the recruiting job is going from sourcing and selecting to having the 5 best candidates, and you're white gloving the 5 best candidates. So we're going to cut the 2 big metrics we're going to have is cutting time to fill in half, and increasing the number of good hires by double. So we're considering good hires people who last 1 year. So we are making the bet that we paid for these tools to remove bias, move faster, and have very, very accurate matches. And we've had it less than a year, and the numbers are really starting to come in. So I just wanted to give you guys an idea of the power of AI in talent acquisition. This is just job descriptions and sourcing, and it's super, super powerful. You'll know, if you want to do workforce planning, where can we have the cheapest engineering labor that have PhDs in the world, and it'll tell you, Tanzania or somewhere. So workforce planning is super powerful now with these kind of tools, because it's stuff that's out there that would take humans forever to go kind of collate. So Hire Brain and Find Them as a combo is changing the TA landscape and the way we think about sourcing our own talent acquisition teams. The next thing will happen is automatic scheduling. So you won't need a sourcer anymore, and you won't need a scheduler anymore. And recruiters will be candidate managers and not people who are going on LinkedIn looking for folks. So LinkedIn is going to become more of a branding site. Brand yourself, and as opposed to this is where I go find people for work. All right, that's all I have. I don't have chat, so if there's questions, please send them to Leah.
Any questions? So Larry, I do have a question about those tools that you just talked about. And I know we only have about 12 minutes. How would you recommend, are those tools easy to obtain?
Easy to obtain. Well,
or reasonable as in cost even?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a super small company, probably not. We're about 6,500 employees. We do about 2 billion in revenue. So we consider it affordable because the ROI on the other side will end up shrinking our talent acquisition department, and we'll end up reducing turnover in the first year, which, as you know, is costly. Or you get someone to the finish line and they say no, or you realize at the very end they're not right. We're reducing all of those problems. But what I would say is, at my last company, we did a tech parade where we got a group of people together and we put criteria around what we wanted in the certain tools. We had a manager in there, we had an IT person in there, we had HR in there. We had 8 or 10 people who had a criteria, and we brought in vendors all in a week, 16 vendors in a week to do demos. Two things happen. One, you're like, oh my God, I'm so far behind understanding how cool these tools are. Two, you get alignment around the table of where we want to go. And three, when you select a vendor, you know you did it unbiased and with an actual game plan to fulfill a talent strategy. Then one thing I'll leave you with is, if you just buy a piece of technology and turn it on, it doesn't work. You don't get the adoption. You have to have a talent strategy digested. This is why people want to work here. And then the technology propels that strategy.
Thank you for that. Actually reminded me on another thing that I wanted to mention. So we're not saying go out there and get these tools, separate tools. First, you also want to try, you want to find out if the system that you're already utilizing has it, because a lot of these systems have it. I talked about Workday, for example, having some of these capabilities. So you want to start with your systems now. And if they don't have them, so whatever HCM tool you have or talent tool, it may be in their roadmap. So just start asking them, like, when are you going to get this? When are we going to have AI implemented? Everybody's working on this. All these systems are working on AI. So it shouldn't be something that you're having to do on your own. If you don't like what they're doing, or they don't have it in their roadmap for whatever reason, then yeah, at that point you can start looking for other systems. But there's tons of tools out there when it comes to AI. What's the most time-consuming task in payroll for you? This is our next question before Tiana talks about payroll. Is anybody tasked with doing payroll, and what takes you so long?
A lot of payroll people here.
Not a lot of payroll people here. All right, we could keep going. We have about 8 minutes, so we can keep going. Thank you.
All righty, so we'll get into the payroll nitty gritty. I'll try to keep this short because I know we're running on time, but a couple things for AI and payroll. So automation of timesheets. If you are familiar with the payroll world, there's lots of time clocks, right? You're talking about face scanners now, finger punches, people entering in IDs, maybe badge swiping, and then that automatically integrates and connects to your HCM system. So if you think about back in the day, many years ago, a lot of times people were manually adding it in on a timesheet paper form and then turning it into their HR and payroll person who was having to enter that in manually. A lot of this functionality in AI has now reduced heavy administrative burdens. Also the calculations of employees' working hours, which leads us into the payroll processing automation, where that helps with taxation, right? So we're not having to manually calculate every single employee's taxes each pay period. When we think about like overtime and double time, right, that's automatically been pre-built into the system to help automate, and making sure that like your tax filings are done accurately and we're being in compliance with specific labor laws. So AI has been around. I know it's becoming a popular word over the last some odd years, but it's definitely, as Leah had went over early on, it's been around for quite some time, and it's been helping us on the back end. And our jobs have still been here, right? Just in a little different way. So just wanted to kind of mention that and make a note of that. And then heavy into the providing actionable insights, where this is really bringing in analyzation of payroll data to uncover trends. So when we think about like turnover, and also leading into the dashboard visualization, where you may also see the dashboard and can see which departments have heavy turnover, that really lets you see, look, is there an issue with this department? Is there an issue with, a manager in this department if there's heavy turnover? And it also helps you kind of plan for specific budgets longer term. And then the dashboards really show like real-time payroll stats, right? So if you're ever in the system going through like a payroll preview process, a lot of times I would look to the dashboard to help detect errors that I may need to correct. So there would be things that would spit out to show there's pay that's being issued to a non-active, right? So is that someone's final pay, or was something not checked off to alleviate someone getting their salary after they've been terminated? Also employees that were active with no hours, right? So did this person have an issue at the time clock where the time clock wasn't picking up their punches, or did someone just stop showing up to work and then the supervisor at that location didn't report that into HR? So lots of different things to think about when we're talking about AI and payroll. I wanted to just kind of talk about what potentially is coming up next, because a lot of this stuff is already, within the system that we're familiar with. Of course, as we mentioned earlier, chatbots is a big thing to kind of help with payroll queries. So that could just be very simple questions. Where do I go to look up my pay stubs? Where do I log into to see this policy? Little stuff like that your team hopefully won't need to be bothered with, and you guys can start working on heavy strategic items. But then also it's going to heavily get into security and start detecting fraud, right? So really kind of leaning into those unusual transactions, right? There's a lot of things that employees can kind of come up with to really try to get over with their hours and so forth. So AI is going to start enhancing some security in that way. And then really, really heavy focus on compliance, especially when it comes to like global compliance. So when we're thinking about the local labor laws, tax regulations, currency conversions, like a lot of that is going to be even more automated within the system to make sure that things are even accurately being processed as we even cross borders. So lots of good, helpful things. I know at times it is really scary, but I will say, it's definitely also interesting. I went from being scared to now being more interested. So I definitely feel everyone's pain out there, but it does help. And I think just our roles need to start becoming, a little bit more strategic.
And with that, I actually thank you for that, Tiana. We had a question about how many HR jobs will go away due to AI. How many HR jobs will go away due to AI? And I just wrote that there will actually be new roles for HR that will be developed because of AI, higher level functions and decision-making roles, more strategic roles. And it's you know, the work that is not strategic that will be going away, essentially.
Yeah, I also want to add to that too when someone mentioned like they'd be comfortable if a human is involved. I think that's the route we're going, because even when we talk about these chatbots, a lot of research I've done and webinars I've been on, and Larry and Bob, correct me if I'm wrong here, but you still need that human aspect, right, to build out those chatbots, right? So now it's like, instead of you being the one to answer the questions, when your company is putting a chatbot together, you as a human need to program that into the backend, right? Very similar to when you're using your HCM platform and you're uploading the job titles and the validation tables or your pay grades and compensation, right? You still need to be there and know how to spot check. That's what I've kind of seen and heard in our industry, where the human is still going to need to be behind the scenes, but just like, if you have 6,500 people like Larry, do you want to answer 1,000 people asking you where to go to find my pay stub and so forth? No, right? Just build it into the chatbot, let them handle that, and then you handle heavier issues that may come up throughout the day.
Thank you, Tiana. We have 2 minutes left, so I apologize if we go just a couple of minutes over for those who can stay. So responsible AI, this is a big piece. Next slide, please. So Bob is going to go over what it means, responsible AI, and I think this is key and what a lot of people are concerned about when we talk about artificial intelligence.
Yeah, thanks, Leah. And obviously, I'm not going to go through all of this, but this is a core sort of tenet of AI within the enterprise and AI transformation. Anyone can use the tool, but you've got to use it responsibly. We don't give cars to people without giving them a driver's license and driver permit. I mean, you've got to learn how to use it properly, and that means in this case ensuring ethical use, ensuring fairness, transparency, and how the algorithms actually work. Can you explain how it arrived at its decision? Can you show me that you are mitigating bias, even though we know the data that all these AI tools and algorithms are trained on was generated by humans? It's historical data. There's bias in that historical data. So what are we doing to mitigate that bias? You can't eliminate it, but you can continually mitigate it, and you can continuously uh, monitor how you're doing against that to check for adverse impact, which is where some of these newer uh, capabilities around governance and compliance come into effect. We have to make sure that as we use AI in our decision-making processes, we're not essentially violating longstanding, pre-existing civil rights legislation, equal opportunity, um, policies and things like that. That's what the EEOC really cares about. Make sure that as technology advances, we're not violating, these pre-existing conditions. So we really need to understand: is there a human in the loop? How much weight did the output of these AI tools or these algorithms weigh in your decision-making process? And in the case of talent acquisition, that means checking it at each phase of the recruiting funnel, because at each phase you're making a decision whether to take that candidate to the next step or not. Right? It's not just did they get the job or not, is it did they get the opportunity to move forward in each of those phases? And sort of to Larry's point, where he's using a number of tools, um, each of those tools, if each of those tools is involved, each of those tools is subject to one of these audits. If it's involved in a decision making process. So the key is AI is only going to get used more and more. It is becoming ubiquitous. So it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we're using it properly, but not just using it properly, to make sure that whoever's building these tools, and in a lot of cases that is the solution provider, but think ahead to when you have AI use within your company and you've been given permission with the appropriate training, et cetera, to create your own co-pilot, to create your own AI agent, to create a custom GPT within ChatGPT. You are now a builder. You are a creator. So you need that type of training and internal communication, and to take on that responsibility. So I continue to say, when it comes to responsible AI, we are all responsible because we're all using it, and we're all going to start building with it if we haven't already.
So great
Lastly, I
way
know
to
we're,
put it.
yeah,
Yeah.
the last
Next
thing
slide.
is just on the next slide. I just wanted to hit on this real quick, but governance is where, these audits come into play. But this is where you're really looking out for any type of risk. So this is, legal, financial, reputational risk. I mean, you want to be a trusted employer and trusted brand. Or if you work for a solution provider, you want to be a trusted partner in this ecosystem. And to do that, you need to make sure that you're adhering to whatever legislation comes about. And so that requires you to pay attention to legislation that's been drafted around the world. If you're in the US, it means you need to see what, California does and New York does, and at a state level. You also need to pay attention to what might come from the federal level, and you need to pay attention to what's going on in places like the European Union, where the EU AI Act is already in effect. And you really need to steer the direction into what is the most sort of restrictive set of policies, because if you can adhere to that, then you can comply with legislation um, as it crops up in other jurisdictions, and as you expand your company to have a global presence. So yeah, so
This is
I
why you
encourage
need,
everyone to use it, but you've got to use it responsibly. You've got to think about some of these principles.
and include legal in your team and compliance. Everybody.
Yeah, yeah, Leah. The only thing I would say is, when we talk about like AI ethics committees and AI governance committees, it really should have the cognitive diversity of, different cultural backgrounds, different domains within the enterprise, maybe even external parties involved. So this is net new sort of governing bodies, not, this should not be just thrown to an existing, legal team or compliance team within HR. This is not all within HR. So I don't want anyone to think that this is all on HR's plate.
Right. It's not all on HR. It's a organizational job and role, really. HR cannot do this on their own. So this, what you're seeing is an example of, I just wanted to show you guys, I went on ChatGPT and I typed up instructions on how to go boating, which I've done many times with somebody who is a boater. I'm not the boater. And yeah, I got all these instructions and very detailed instructions, but there was no information about, well, you have to make sure that you know how to read a map, for example. So this is just a very simple example where you can't just take whatever's coming out of GPTs and just run with it. We still need human, we still need experience, we still need critical thinking. Humans are not going to be eliminated from the equation. It's just to see all of those instructions. I mean, it's very helpful, but AI is just augmenting already kind of what we already are doing and know is just helping us be even better. But we still need the reasoning. Thank you. I don't know if we have, I think we're finishing up. So we'll go to the final slide. And this is just to tell you that let's take action. You've heard what we've said here today, that this is not an HR only initiative. It's an organizational level initiative. Use the playbook that I will send everybody along with this presentation. It has a structured approach in there. It's not everything, it's just a starting point. It'll be very helpful to you all. Remain human-centric. What you've heard all along. It's crucial to keep people in the center of your decisions. AI is here to help. It's doing for you, not to you. Start now. And that's it. Thank you. Thank you all. We're having our final Lunch and Learn series October 30th, and we're going to be talking about the trends. HR Tech is coming up, and a few of us are going to be there next week. And so we'll finish off our series with what's coming up in the HR Tech field. So thank you so much all for being here today. I hope you learned something and you're feeling better about artificial intelligence and how you can start utilizing it. So thank you. Sorry we stayed over. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.